Welcome to today's TAM webinar, Liquidity Plus, a model portfolio to beat the banks. Firstly, before we go into the webinar, just a quick bit of housekeeping. What makes these webinars successful is viewers' participation. You'll see a section on your screen where you can ask questions. Please enter your questions here and I'll ask them to our presenter at the end of the webinar. Also, at the end of the webinar, please rate us as it will help us shape future Bright Talk presentations. Now, to discuss TAM Liquidity Plus, a model portfolio to beat the banks, I'll pass you on to TAM's Chief Investment Officer, James Penny.
Thank you very much for that, Dave. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for dialing on to my first Bright Talk presentation since the dark days of COVID. So it's nice to be back on this platform doing virtual events again. What I want to talk you through today is TAM's Liquidity Plus portfolio, which is extremely topical. We built this for a number of different reasons, which I'm going to go into now. But essentially, the portfolio was the portfolio's inception. The reason why this portfolio exists is to provide advisors and their clients with an investment solution for right now. All advisors, and clients that are listening will understand that we're in a new environment. We're in an environment where interest rates and arguably inflation have not been where they currently are for, a decade plus. So when you have interest rates at this level, cash does start to become an asset class again. And you do start to get clients saying, well, look, I can go to the bank and start to generate a real yield again. I haven't been able to do that in decades. And that's obviously attractive for a client. And what TAM wanted to do is provide the best solution for that client without that client having to go through the turbulence of removing their assets from the investment world and putting them into the banking world. Because as advisors will know, when a client's assets go into that banking system, out of the investment system, it's very difficult to get them back again. So what we wanted to do is provide a solution that went alongside our model portfolio. And it's a really great solution. I'm just going to walk you through some of the salient points. The first one is this was created, as I said, to combat rising interest rates. If you can start to get a meaningful level of interest from your bank account, we want to create a portfolio that mirrors that starts to deliver that Bank of England base rate. That's what we're looking for. That's essentially what this portfolio is. The Liquidity Plus is to track that Bank of England base rate. We wanted to provide clients with a high yield, low cost alternative to standard bank accounts. That's pretty clear from what I've made out, right? Cost is obviously critical here. Clients want to generate that yield that goes along with the Bank of England's inflation interest rate. So if we're charging a lot for this portfolio, it obviously just degrades how effective this portfolio is. So as I'll go through later, the charges that we've put on this portfolio are as negligible as we can make them. Again, final point here is to keep clients invested in the market, right? Is to keep them in that investment system, but investing them in a way that is akin to putting their capital into the banking system, right? And again, one of the points here is to maintain clients' long-term investment goals. So as an advisor, you will know that clients will have a long-term investment journey that they are on, right? They will have a event horizon in the future that they are working towards. This portfolio is a perfect place to sit for now for clients that are nervous about the market, but are also very attracted to that high interest rate. Again, so this is a tool along the journey that those clients are on. So why should my clients choose this portfolio? This is an important point that we've been asked many times. We created these set of slides based on questions from advisors about this portfolio. So we thought it was good to basically just go along and answer them for you. Why should my clients choose this portfolio? I mean, the first point, and one of the most important points, is banks are notoriously slow at offering savers the best interest rates. You'll know that in that when you look at a bank account, when you look at when you look at a savings rate, you're not getting that Bank of England interest rate. You're getting something below it. You're not going to get 5.2, 5.3. You're going to be yielding maybe 3 or 4, maybe even less. So it's difficult for clients to come out of the investment world into the banking world and immediately start to realize the net benefit of the Bank of England's interest rate. Whereas if you invest into TAM's Liquidity Plus portfolio, you can start to effectively generate that 5% yield per annum that we've put in there. So we're already at that. But again, the critical point to note here is that this portfolio will track that interest rate. So if they do raise rates again, you will start to see that coming through in your client's yield. I'll talk about how we've constructed the portfolio in a little bit. One of the points here that I want you to remember about TAM is that we're always one of the first to bring things to the market. And this Liquidity Plus portfolio is no real difference. What TAM was able to do is create a portfolio very quickly off the back of the meetings that we've had with the advisory community saying, look, we're seeing a lot of appetite from our clients to move into the banking world, to start to capture that real interest rate. So what we wanted to do is create an investment equivalent so that you as advisors could help keep your clients' assets within the investment world rather than losing it to the banking world. That's important for us, important for you. This point here, I think, is an interesting one, which is this is not a bank account, right? The Liquidity Plus portfolio is not a bank account. It is an investment portfolio. So it does carry with it investment risks. That's important to note. TAM is an asset manager. We are not a bank account. So off the back of that, how risky are the investments within the Liquidity Plus portfolio? And I think this is a good point to just stop for a second and talk about what the Liquidity Plus portfolio is. I think that's important. The Liquidity Plus portfolio is essentially a collection of money market funds. Now, money market funds are like a normal fund. You invest your client's capital into that fund, but what the fund is doing with that capital is very low risk, high yield investment into ultra short dated government bonds. And government bonds remain one of the most secure investments that you can make across the world. Right? And if you're investing that money, if you are loaning your money to the government for 3 to 6 months, that's very, very short term. That's in the investment world, extremely low risk. You also have cash on deposit. You have money market funds as well. All of these different types of instruments, all of these different types of funds are what you will find within the TAM Liquidity Plus portfolio. At the moment, the fund consists of 4 different investments, one from Aviva, one from Royal London, a short-term money market instrument, one from Aberdeen, a sterling money market instrument, and Premier Miton. The reason that we have selected these low-risk cash funds is because they have a fantastic yield for a very low volatility. And if we can include and make a basket of those, that's a great Liquidity Plus portfolio. What we're focusing on here is that low vol, high yield. What we want to do is own funds that track that Bank of England rate. So when interest rates go up again, your clients can start to see that in that yield. But the main point is that at the moment, this portfolio is already yielding over 5 to 5.2%, which is exactly where we want. In terms of risk, when we put this portfolio, and I'm going to try and give you a comparison here, so I hope it makes sense. Our defensive portfolio, which is the level up from this, which invests into a traditional portfolio of equities and bonds, just with a lot more bonds. And most people will be familiar with what a defensive model looks like. When you do an FE risk score of our defensive model, it comes out with an FE risk score of 29. That's pretty standard, and that's very low. That's low for the industry, and that's good for TAM. When you put the Liquidity Plus portfolio into FE, it comes out with a risk score of 2. So I hope that that's the clearest way that I can make the justification between our lowest risk investment portfolio, which is defensive, versus this portfolio. So that's a huge step down. And I hope that goes to show just how low vol this portfolio is designed to be. It is essentially designed to be as volatile as cash. We are trying to design this portfolio to be as volatile as cash, but obviously it is an investment portfolio. It is invested into funds. That must be clear, but we have made it as low vol as humanly possible. So what I've done is I've gone through here some of the points around the construction of what we've been going through. Again, a good point here. Number 3, daily liquidity is critical. Sometimes when you invest into these types of portfolios, you get lock-in periods. You get saying, well, if you want to give us your assets, we need to hold them for a period of 6 months to a year. What you have within the TAM portfolio is cash funds are daily dealt. They are highly liquid, which means that if your clients want to get their assets back quickly, we can absolutely do that for them because these are cash-based instruments. Again, here, effortless switching between risk profiles. At a certain point in time, and this is worth, I think it's going to segue into the next slide. At a certain point in time, there's going to become a point when the bond market and the equity market are going to start to change. They're going to start to yield more. They're going to start to generate more returns than they are at the moment. The bond market is not doing very well this year. When that happens, these types of cash plus portfolios, liquidity plus portfolios, will start to yield less than the traditional bond and equity market. So at a certain point, there's going to be a conversation between advisors and their clients about re-engaging with the market. And it's critical that advisors, clients, and investment managers like TAM are keeping an eye on when that environment might turn around. But the main point here that we've put is that at that point in time, switching, upgrading, because your clients are in the investment system with Liquidity Plus, that they can move up into the defensive portfolios, move up into the cautious portfolios without having to get that money out of the banking system and move it back into the investment system. So again, it's keeping it all close to home. So again, this is what I wanted to, this is a slide which I think is very important, which is the question of, can my clients use the portfolio over the long term? We had a lot of questions from advisors saying, well, look, if we're getting a 5% yield out of this portfolio, that's a great annualized return. Why don't my clients just stay in this for the long term? Because essentially what you are doing is you are buying interest rates where they currently are. So it stands to reason when those interest rates start to come back down again, the portfolio yield of TAM Liquidity Plus will also come down. So it's going to be less attractive when interest rates start to come back down. Now, I have a view and TAM have a view on when interest rates are going to start to come back down. We envisage that at some point in Q2, Q3 of 2024. But again, inflation is going to govern that. So everybody has a view on when rates are going to come back down. But this portfolio will yield less when that happens. At that point in time, one of the large drivers of the bond market is going to be a recession or is going to be when rates start to come back down. Both of those two environments are going to be very positive for the bond market, which remains on its knees. So my point is as cash starts to become less valuable and interest rates start to come back down as the Bank of England cut interest rates, you're going to start to see a positive appreciation from the bond market. At that point in time, the generative returns from a defensive, cautious, balanced growth portfolio are going to start to pick up. Clients are going to notice that those portfolios are going to start to outperform cash. They're going to outperform interest rates, especially when they come back down to 2-3%, which is where people think the terminal rate will be for the Bank of England. So at that point in time, it's going to be beneficial for your clients to review their allocation, for advisors to review their allocation with their clients and decide whether the Liquidity Plus portfolio is the best thing for them. So in a very long-winded answer, can my clients use this for the long term? Absolutely, they can. But there's going to come a point when portfolio optimization back into the bond market and back into the equity market is going to be a good choice for that client. Depending on their outcome, of course, and that's what the advisory market will do with their clients, is assess that. Again, the last point here that I think is very critical to make is when that decision, when that time to move back into the bond market and the equity market occurs, you're still in the TAM range. You're still in the Liquidity Plus portfolio, which is the lowest rung. Moving up into defensive, moving up into cautious is a very, very quick turnaround. We can do that very quickly. So that's nice and streamlined. Again, one of the advantages of remaining in the investment system. So this is the main point. I think this nicely corners the value for money, right? If your clients can invest into a Liquidity Plus portfolio and generate a Bank of England interest rate of around 5.5, but they're paying a lot of money to do that, then that obviously detracts from the attractiveness of the portfolio. So one of the drivers was that we wanted to keep this portfolio as low charge as possible to obviously make that yield as high as possible. The reason that we can charge a low fee for this is twofold. One of the reasons that we can charge a low fee is TAM uses its institutional relationships within the market to engage with funds that are usually reserved for institutions, are usually reserved for big banks to use these funds to generate a higher yield. But TAM can give your clients access to it as well. That's one of the reasons why it's very, very good to use a model portfolio manager with good institutional reputations and relationships to build this portfolio for you. The portfolio at the moment has got a total charge of 0.38. BP stands for bips, so that's points of percentage. So 38 bips is 0.38 of 1%. I hope that makes sense. TAM's annual management charge for running the Liquidity Plus portfolio is 5 bips. It's about the cheapest annual management charge I've seen on a managed portfolio. We wanted to give it as competitively as possible to make sure that that charge, that impact for clients in their portfolio was as much as possible. The platform charge at 20 bips and the underlying fund charge, that is what the funds that we invest into charge us. So that is a cost that we obviously have to incur. That is also extremely low because these are very simple instruments. They're low risk, low touch investments. They do not charge a high annual management charge. So one of the things that we did when we designed this portfolio is we said it must be low charge. It must be as cost effective as possible for the client to make sure that there's bang for your buck in terms of getting that Bank of England interest rate. So I think this is also a very compelling argument. You will find other portfolios, you will find other money market instruments out there. I would be very interested if you wanted to feed that back to me, what they're charging. But TAM has always consistently been one of the lowest charges in the market. I believe that that's going to be the case here. So again, low charge, interest rate tracking, yielding about 5 to 5.5, depending where interest rates go, I think is a really great picture for us. Where is the portfolio available? That's an interesting one that we get. We get advisors, we get clients asking, where can they find this portfolio to invest their client assets? TAM's been on a very large push to put its portfolios onto different platforms. And we've been leveraging that over the last 12 months to make sure that they're more widely available on a wider range of platforms. So we've worked hard to make sure that our Liquidity Plus portfolio is available on the platforms that we've put here. They're the big ones, the Avivas, the Embarks, the Fidelities, M&G, Morningstar, Aberdeen, 7IM. These are some of the biggest. These are where we find the majority of the client assets sit. So again, obviously, main point at the top is you can come to TAM direct. That's an important point, is that our portfolio is available direct through standard business channels. Missed 3 at the end there, they popped up. Novia, Quilter, and Transact are also available where you can find TAM's Liquidity Plus portfolio. Dave will be your best point of contact to speak to about that. If you want to engage with the Liquidity Plus portfolio on any one of these platforms, you can talk to him, request access to TAM's range on that platform, and we can make that happen for you. So that's me, done. It's a simple portfolio, very easy to understand. I've done it in 19 minutes and 25 seconds, which I think is pretty good. As with all these presentations, I think the important point is that you're always going to have questions as an advisor. I always expect questions from the advisory community. It's great because it's a good level of engagement. Please don't take this presentation as the final piece of information. If you have any other questions, please do get in contact with Dave, get in contact with myself. We're happy to answer any questions. When we build portfolios, we really enjoy the building process. We really enjoy all the questions that come along with it, and we find them really challenging. So please do reach out. Please do ask any other questions before you want to use this. Dave, you okay to run the questions?
Yes, James, thank you for that. We do have a few questions to put to you. One of them is, why hasn't this type of portfolio always been on offer?
So, okay, this portfolio hasn't always been on offer because if you look over history, interest rates have been at zero. Cash has not been king. Cash has not yielded very much over the last decade. Since 2008, arguably, interest rates have come down. Inflation's been very low. In fact, modern economies have struggled to get inflation to target. Cash has not yielded anything, whereas the bond market has been on an absolute tear for that same period. So when a client looks at cash or investing into the bond market or the equity market, it's been a no-brainer. So this portfolio has not needed to be around because we've not been in this type of market before. So you've not seen people coming to market with these types of portfolios, but now cash is starting to yield something. You're starting to see people wanting to invest into cash, that low risk cash at 5%. So you're starting to see products coming up. You're starting to see TAM and the likes of other competitors creating these portfolios. I think what's interesting is TAM in the media has probably been the first MPS manager to release this portfolio to the wider market. It's funny, every time I read a news article about a competitor of ours releasing their version of Liquidity Plus, TAM is always mentioned as the front runner, which is interesting. But we created this a while ago. I love the fact that TAM can be one of the first to market.
Great. Also, why don't more MPS managers release these types of models, which, as we've sort of covered there?
Some people will want to release models. Some people will have a desire, or they will see that the market needs these types of models, but their infrastructure, they're too large, diseconomies of scale. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the investment team. They just don't run them because it's not worth their while. Right. So there's a lot of our competitors out there that are just simply too large or simply too intransient to create these sorts of things. That's one of the beauties of investing into a boutique like TAM, is we're nimble enough to create these effective instruments, but also advise you, the client, the advisor, that this is not for the long term, that there will become a point when the clients will be better serviced moving out of this portfolio back into traditional bonds and equities.
Great. I've got another question here. What is the wrapper? Is it ISA, GIA, SIP?
These can be put, you can put this into an ISA if you want, but I think that comes into the point that this is not a long-term investment. This is a protective portfolio for the market as we stand today. But these portfolios, this investment model can be put into different wrappers.
Yeah, great. I'd say that's more or less all of the questions there, James. I've got one here. Do we have a fact sheet?
So the fact sheets can be found on our website. The Liquidity Plus fact sheet can be found on our website. It has all of our charges. It has all of the underlying targeted yield. It has everything on it. I'm just going back to the charges here just to list them out. But you should see these charges on the fact sheet on the web, right? 5 bips AMC, 20 bip platform charge, 13 bips underlying charge, and then you get the total overall charges figure of 38 bips. George, I'm just going to answer George's question very quickly. The platform charge that I've listed there at 20 bips, that is for TAM's platform. That's TAM's custody agent is Bank of New York Mellon through Pershing's. That is what they charge us. When you invest via a platform like a Novia, like a Transact, like an Aviva, that platform charge will change, and it will be what that platform is charging you. So that's something to be aware of, is that element of the charging structure will adhere to whatever platform you're using it on. George, I hope that makes sense.
Great. I think that's covered everything. What I will say, if anyone comes up with any other questions at the end of the webinar, please don't hesitate to email myself and I'll get those answers to you as soon as possible. To access TAM's Liquidity Plus portfolio via the third-party platforms, as James had said already, please do contact myself via email. Oh, there we go. My name's David Terry. My email address is david.terry@tamassetmanagement.com. As I say, just send me some information and I will get back to you with how to access our portfolios via third-party platform. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, guys.